So this is my very first YouTube Q&A. So I got a bunch of my followers on Instagram to submit me a bunch of questions and I'll just go through answering all of them. And this is all unscripted. I'm talking off the top of my head and I just wanted to try a new content style, a new format and see how this goes. Yeah, I realize I'm always hiding behind my voiceovers and it's kind of necessary because if you want to fit everything into 90 seconds, you need to script it and everything needs to be concise. But the benefit of YouTube is I can talk off the top of my head and I could elaborate and at least show a little bit more of my personality rather than just have me reading off a script. So I think this will provide a nice little, I don't know, experiment and contrast to my regular content style. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I did my best to highlight the questions, which I think would provide the most value, but also had the most overlap. If there were lots of questions that were being asked about the same thing, I'm definitely going to answer them. If I didn't get around to answering your question, I'm sorry. There's probably over like 100 in here, which is really cool. And all of these are really good questions. So I don't even know how long this video will end up being. And if I can even film all of this in one take, I might need to work out, come back and finish up more. But yeah, let's get started. Okay, first question. Of course, this would be the first question. Thank you for this, Paris. If you dropped your phone in a porta potty, would you grab it? That's a very good question. But I'm an extreme individual, so not only would I grab it, I would swan dive into the porta potty, mouth open, and I wouldn't even come up for air. I'd just go in and die. I think it's a little overrated to get all the way to the end of your life, pass away in a home surrounded by family and loved ones. I wanted more of an epic death myself, hence why I'm lifting lots of weight. And I feel like jacked, strong guy drowning in a porta potty would be a cool story and a cool way to go out. Off to a good start, aren't we? All right, next question. How would you use your bench press as an accessory for dips? I really like this question because obviously I'm coming from a world where it's progress bench press at all costs. And I've never seen my bench press as a potential accessory to another lift. But recently, because we're having a weighted dip challenge in my community, I've needed to make a program which prioritizes dips over bench press. So I've had to think a lot about this, which is good timing on this question. So when it comes to including your bench press, I actually like including the bench press first because you do your dynamic warm up for your bench press, you work your way up to your top set, and by the time you get to your dips afterwards, assuming you don't fatigue yourself, you're nice and warm, especially on my dips where I go all the way down. I want a really thorough warm up, and I have tried doing dips before my bench press, and I've kind of felt weaker. So doing your bench first, lighter RPE, and then going straight into your dips, and then potentially following that up with more bench press would be a good way to structure the progression of both into your program. And I really do think the reason my dips are very strong are because I have a big bench press, and I do think my bench press has benefited from my dips. So these two definitely benefit one another, but it's just more of a matter of managing the intensity between both and ensuring that the one you want to prioritize is trained at the highest intensity. Question number 3. What do you think about an ass to grass squat? I think they are cooler. They look better. They're more impressive. You get more stimulation at the bottom of the lift. So on the surface, it's very good. But the downside of ass to grass squats, if you are a powerlifting competitor, is you're not going to be able to squat quite as much. So if you're looking to optimize your performance in competition, you're going to need to cut depth a little bit. But what I find is even if you are an ass to grass squatter, we just instinctively cut depth. So I think it's good to just practice ass to grass squats. And once you max out, you end up just cutting depth anyways, as just like, it's like a fear mechanism. So yeah, very big on full ranges of motion across a lot of my movements, but also including like shortened reps here and there. Like it wouldn't hurt to have like a heavier, less deep squat, but hopefully you're at least hitting competition standard. I don't like encouraging quarter squats. Even if you're an athlete or something like that, I still encourage a full range of motion just so you don't build up deficits in your muscles, in your tendons by ignoring certain ranges. So 100%, even on like your warm-ups, at least warm up with ass to grass squats if you don't squat all the way down. Next question, are rest days necessary? I know you don't have them, but are they actually needed? This will depend on your programming structure. If you are a high frequency powerlifter, you are a high frequency calisthenics athlete, or you're just training the same movements over and over, a rest day is probably going to be a little bit more necessary. But if you are very tactical with how you plan out your week, like me, you can get away without them because you can plan your week in a way where the workouts don't interfere with one another. You're not lifting through fatigue, and you're able to prioritize and work around these fatigue muscles. So, are they necessary? No. I mean, I haven't done them in seven years. I don't know, something like that. And I feel better just without them myself. I like working out. I like the way it makes me feel. I like being able to hit a PR. I like knowing that I'm doing the most every single day to progress me to the highest possible level. These things are very important to me, so I've needed to find a way to fit it in to as many days as possible and just find a way to progress as many different muscles, and I found it to work. But again, this is not something that necessarily will work for everyone depending on your goals. Do I think everyone can work out 7 days a week with the right structure similar to mine? For sure. But if you're trying to squat 3-4 times a week, yeah, that starts getting into a little like dicey territory. So I wouldn't recommend it in that case. But yeah, totally depends on your goals. Advice for someone trying to build a personal brand around lifting and also monetizing it. So I'd say the concern with fitness nowadays is that it is very saturated. So you're going to need to find a way to stand out. And how do you stand out? There's also like a million different ways you can stand out. Is your content really good? Is it educational? Are you really strong? Do you have lots of credibility? I don't think you could get away with not being really good at one of these skills. So hone in on a skill, double down on it for a long period of time, just like I double down on powerlifting, bench press, whatever. And then I use that experience to kind of fuel my content. And you definitely do want to get started in some form of content creation. I don't think if you want to create a personal brand, I don't think there's any way around making content. So you want to find your angle. Like what do you have to offer that's really unique? Are you funny? Are you articulate? Are you good looking? Like, do you have a very strong muscle group? Do you have a lift you excel at? Find that thing, double down on it, and just master it, and then share your experience with how you got to that point. And people want to hear that. People want to get to that point as well. And it's also very interesting hearing about the experience of other high performers. And be okay with a long building period. Like, it took me 10, 11 years before I started to capitalize on my experience. Mainly because I didn't really know where I was going, but I'm happy it happened in the order that it did because I have a lot of experience to talk back on. I competed so many times in multiple different sports, and I've had to overcome a lot of different problems, which ended up being very unique, and it allowed me to stand out. And obviously I'm competing at a high level, which also allows my lifts to stand out a lot more. So yeah, be okay with that initial grinding period, but just slowly invest in these skills like editing, talking in front of a camera, writing. Like, these are all things that can really pay off when it comes to your personal brand. So allow those skills to accrue over time, kind of like compound interest or something like that. What is your mobility routine? How do you ensure you don't get knots in your muscles? So my mobility, I have coined broga, because I include my mobility into my movements. So I don't really do much in the way of static stretching unless I have a problem muscle, unless I have a knot, unless I have like some sort of pain that I need to address, like maybe while I'm warming up before I get into the movement. But a lot of my mobility is addressed by full ranges of motion, length and partials. They're just included in my program so that I don't need to do extra on top. Like, if I'm doing, look at the way I do my dips, look at the way I do my leg exercises. Those are all stretches to a certain extent. And I like being able to utilize a full stretch with weight and like utilize the weight to push me deeper into the stretch, which is why I call it broga, because I'm so freaking tight from being a bro that I need the extra weight to push me into the stretch. And I also believe this makes it a lot more efficient in the workout. So you just focus on your exercises and you just utilize the stretch while you're working out. Say a fly, for example, like let the fly pull you into a full stretch and then continue the range of motion. You do that with literally any single movement. And that way you don't need to add more on top. And I'm really a fan of lengthened partials for that reason, because you get to train your muscle in that lengthened position and strengthen it and also facilitate hypertrophy, strength. It's just, yeah, very well-rounded and efficient. So that's why I kind of prioritize it that way. Best tip for managing fatigue. Programming structure. by far. There are things you could do outside of the gym, but if you're just constantly wrecking yourself, like there's no amount of ice baths and saunas and sleep that is really going to that is going to facilitate recovery faster. I think you just need to be very tactical with how you lay out your split throughout the week and ensure that you can stimulate the muscle, but you also give it time to recover so that you could perform the following week. And this is why I'm a fan of lower frequencies, because I can push, but then I have time to recover, and this allows my joints to recover as well. If you're fatigued, you have a higher frequency, and you're just constantly working out on the same joint, yeah, you're not really going to recover, nor is your joint going to like that very much. And sure, maybe a higher frequency may result in more potential gains over a shorter period of time. But if we expand our horizons a little bit, you're going to see that effect diminish because you're going to start experiencing pain, tendon issues, or worse, an injury. And then that injury takes you out. So we need to have longevity in mind in addition to wanting to progress. So plan out your workouts. Ensure that you're not working out a fatigued muscle. And you'll know when you're working out, like you'll feel sore, fatigued. Your body's going to be screaming at you to not do it. And we want to be aware of these things because a lot of the times we'll just like try more thorough warm up to like just get the fatigue out of our muscle with a dynamic warm up when it's fatigue. You're not tight for no reason. You're tight because you're fatigued. I think it's better to listen to that and just train at a lower frequency and allow for that recovery so that once you lift, you actually feel like you're ready to lift. Next question. What are your thoughts on keto and carnivore for bodybuilding? I would say I'm definitely more of like a fat-based lifter myself. And I love ketosis. I love the mental clarity. I love the simplicity. And I feel the best on it. So I'm frequently in ketosis. And as far as how does it benefit bodybuilding, it's not as well studied for sure. So I can't give you exact statistics, but I think what everyone should experience is trying it, running it, seeing how they feel. Are they making gains? Are the additional benefits worth it? And if they are, continue with it. If carbs are something you just can't stop yourself from eating, then find a way to manage it with carbs in. But the best way to really find out these things, and this is what I'm going to encourage for everything in general, is experimentation. Try it. And if you do try a keto, a carnivore approach, try it for like an extended period of time. Don't try it for like 2 weeks and then you're eating carbs here and there. You like cut out carbs completely, commit to it for like 3 months, and pay attention to how you feel throughout. And that'll give you good data. And then you'll be able to compare to your experience the last 3 months. And then contrast. What are the pros and cons? And are the pros worth the sacrifice? And if they are, stick with it. You want to find, when it comes to diet, you want to find the most, the seamless diet, the diet that fits into your schedule and routine the best. Because your gains are going to take a long period of time. And you want diet to be something that's kind of automated, where you know you're choosing the right one because you've experimented a lot. And you just don't need to think about it that much when you're constantly, say, counting calories, changing your dieting plan, and it just takes up too much mental bandwidth and is just not a great effort, or not a great return on your mental energy. Whereas if you took that mental energy and applied it to the gym, how can I progress? How can I get more tactical about improving? That's going to give you more of a return than being like hyper fixated on optimizing these small things with your diet. So work towards diet automation would be my biggest recommendation. Will you have to give up on muscle gain to prioritize strength gains? I don't know where these two got separated. A few studies come out talking about train in the 1 to 5 rep range for strength, and above that is hypertrophy. When these two benefit one another, they belong together. The more muscular cross-sectional area you have, the more force you can produce. The stronger you are, the stronger the stimulus is for muscle growth. These things are not separate. Yes, you could get very strong without building much muscle neurologically and just having a lot of kind of efficiency with how your brain connects to your muscle. But these two go hand in hand, and you want to address both as such. And there's no benefit to not building more muscle. I don't know who doesn't want more muscle. It's just even from a longevity standpoint as well, like you're going to live longer, your health outcomes are going to be better. Like you should be prioritizing both in your training, and they 100% benefit one another. The relationship is bidirectional. They both benefit one another. What are the exercises you perform to strengthen your rotator cuff? Tons. I don't know if you see my shoulder workout. I guess I haven't posted too much on it recently. but I am including at least one movement for each rotational exercise of the shoulder every shoulder day. So I have a primary shoulder day where I do all my presses, my raises, and all my rotational work. And I'm prioritizing external rotation, I'm prioritizing internal rotation, or these guys, and I find ways to stretch them out and put them through a full range of motion. So think of it like your external rotators are muscles that are often very tight because they are never put into a max range stretch, nor are they really trained in these ranges. So these are going to be ranges you want to hit in some capacity. And I found the best way to do this is by, I don't know if you see a lot of my like horizontal exercises where I lay flat on a bench and I do things like shoulder presses and like raises while I lay flat. Those are going to be key. And I'm getting a lot of questions on rotator cuff strengthening. And I would say that's something you really want to prioritize. If you're tight, really evaluate your training. What movements are you missing? Are you getting your rotational movements in? Or are you just like skipping them altogether because you want to focus on your presses? And you got to identify your deficits and you got to hammer those deficits because those are going to be your bottlenecks that affect your ability to progress. It doesn't matter how much you want your bench press to progress if your rotator cuff is jammed and you're just constantly in pain. So those are things you really need to address. And shameless plug, I have a full exercise bank on my rotator cuff exercises inside my community, inside my program where I provide absolutely everything. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely check it out. And then you'll also have access to me if you need some back and forth to help me, if you need help isolating that specific issue. How do you break through barriers in your lifts and what focus steps do you take? First is the recognition that we are plateaued and we are doing something to contribute to this plateau in some way. So we need to take responsibility for it. And what is the bottleneck? We need to address what might be causing this. Am I not recovering properly? Am I not pushing hard enough? Has my program expired? Is it just not working for me anymore? There could be so many different reasons that your lift might not be progressing, but the most common reason is that you just aren't providing the stimulus to progressively overload it. But the thing that's affecting that could be a bunch of different constraints. Is it joint pain? Yeah. Is it your recovery? Are you just training too frequently and you're not allowing the muscle to recover so that you can train at the intensity you need to progress? And is it a technical thing? Can your execution improve? What are you missing? Are there imbalances you need to address? There's so many reasons or there's just so many areas you can isolate and just try to isolate like one at a time. Okay, I'm not really doing this. I'm not really including, I don't know, rotator cuff exercises. Let's try to include those and see if that helps. If you notice a big bump in your strength as soon as you start including rotator cuff exercises, I think that's a pretty good sign that that is something you need to include. And you really want to pay close attention to this. And I can't really stress this enough. Like, you really want to pay close attention to your body, your progression, and all these things, because these are variables you're going to need to learn how to improve over time. You can't keep doing the same thing until the end of time and continue to progress. That's why you don't see too many people progressing to this level. That's why you don't see too many outliers. But if you can get these systems down for yourself and just understand your body, understand what you're missing, and work to correct your imbalances, you're not going to really run into these speed bumps and plateaus as often as you might think. So I would say that's kind of the point where I'm at. I'm very late in my training career. I'm still continuing to progress because I'm very cognizant of these things. I'm tracking. I'm always criticizing and like analyzing what I'm doing wrong, where I can improve, what I could do differently. And that has allowed me to continue to evolve. So that's something you really want to pay attention to in order to overcome those plateaus. Next question. How are you able to maintain such a lean body fat percentage while progressing on lifts with ease? I wouldn't say it's ease necessarily. I mean, it does look effortless, but then you don't see the amount of work that kind of goes into the background. You don't see my 10 years of, well, what is it, 13 years now? 13 years of my training method that has been honed and developed and constantly improved upon to get to this point. And I think we also have a little bit of a misunderstanding with low body fat percentages. I think people believe it's impossible to progress at lower body fat percentages, when in reality, it doesn't seem to be that bad. Like, it has been very rewarding for me to be lean these past couple of years in terms of progression. I progressed much better than I was when I was just eating whatever the hell I wanted. And I was carrying, I don't know, an extra 15 pounds. 15 pounds. But it really requires you to be dialed and focused and understand your variables, even from a diet perspective. You need to be very thorough. You need to follow through on your decision to diet and build upon it over time and improve. And if you do these things, progress will come pretty effortlessly to you as well. So track variables, experiment, and see for yourself rather than taking someone else's word, rather than taking my own word for it. I have my own set of experiences, and what I say might not apply to absolutely everyone. But it's worth an experiment to try and to see if it does apply to you. So yeah, I do think it's worth getting down to a lower body fat percentage, maintaining that, and just trying to progress and see how you feel. If you notice you're progressing faster, well, I think you have your answer there. Do you use RPE in your programming? I don't understand how to use it. So rate of perceived exertion is essentially a scale from 1 to 10 that determines how hard you're working. RPE 10 is kind of like a max effort set. RPE 9 is it's a very high intensity set, but I left 1 rep in the tank. I could have done 1 more if I tried. And yes, I would say I use RPE, but I have like my own training system I kind of devised in my head. There are going to be situations where I'm not going to push higher RPEs, and those are going to be days I'm super fatigued. I'm feeling that during warm-ups. It would just be counterproductive for me to push on a muscle that doesn't want to be worked. And I also have a system of knowing when to go for those sets. And yeah, those are going to be days where I'm fresh, things are moving well, and I'm going to want a PR. And my entire program is set up in a way that I want a PR as much as possible. And how do I facilitate this? And yeah, through lots of iterations, I got to that point. So how do I use it? It's very like situational and very variable. I was explaining this to someone in my community. There are going to, I'd say when fresh, push really hard, but push really hard if you have a low frequency and you have enough time to recover. Whereas if you have a higher frequency, you're going to need to dial down the intensity and the RPE just so you can manage multiple training sessions. So yeah, this is obviously going to be like challenging to map out for every single situation. But in my own case, because I have a low frequency, I'm training at very high intensities for my primary exercises. In my community, I label these as A exercises. Those are the main exercises like the bench press, the dips, the pull-ups that I'm trying to progress. And if I'm recovered, I'm pushing hard on those. If not, I'm dialing back the RPE, and then I'm focusing on getting technical practice in, lighter work, maybe focusing on a stretch or an aspect of the lift. Like maybe I'll just dial it back and focus on like an eccentric bench, or maybe just like a high body weight pull-up to compensate in some way. Do I believe in deload weeks? I did touch on this earlier when I talked about not taking rest days. I do believe in deload weeks before competition. You definitely want to deload before that. But I don't believe in like a blanket deload. I find that there's usually a specific muscle that needs more rest. And you may need to deload a specific day or a specific couple days throughout the week. And that's something I do. I'm still in the gym, but I'm kind of deloading certain muscles based on fatigue. And that allows me to just maintain effort across the muscles that are recovering. Why would it take an entire deload week if my biceps can perform fine, my shoulders perform fine, my chest perform fine, and it's only my calves that are sore? So I want to be as efficient as possible with accruing stimuli. So yeah, I'm not going to usually take a blanket deload week unless there is a competition or something like that. Or sometimes life demands it of you. You know, you miss a day in the gym. Like we take unintentional deloads all the time. So do we need to plan one at the end of a 4-week training cycle? No, I don't think so. We want to be in the gym as much as possible. And yeah, oftentimes life takes that away from us, so we get our deload then. So I don't think that's something you necessarily need to plan unless you are just like squatting, deadlifting very frequently, and you're just completely wrecked and you can't really squat or deadlift anyways. Then at that point, maybe a full week would be necessary. But in my case, yeah, I don't really believe in full deload weeks outside of the competition preparation period. How do I maintain? I'm modeling, so I need to stay lean, but I also want to build muscle. Find that leanness you want, maingain. Just automate your diet like I mentioned before. Find a diet that keeps you at the body weight you want and just focus on strength and building in the gym. You don't need to go through these bulk cut cycles. I think it's actually just much more even efficient to know where your strength is slowly progressing from rather than like gaining strength on a bulk, losing it on a cut, gaining strength on a bulk. I think it's just better you just maingain and slowly get stronger, and you know when you're getting stronger, it's a great indication that your muscle is growing as well. So find that body weight you want, and find the diet that facilitates that. And you're going to need to do a deep dive in understanding why specific diets appeal to you. And I don't think it's just a matter of knowing what to eat. You need to know, are you emotionally eating? Is your dopamine reward system hijacked by hyperpalatable foods? That could be something worth really thinking about. And that's something I highlight in my nutrition courses in my community, is how, like, what is taste? Like, what determines whether we are hungry or not? Is that a feeling we can overcome? Like, these are very like complex topics that are very worth diving into. And I really think diet is a lot more behavioral than a lot of people give it credit for. A lot of people are like, oh, eat these things. But if it was that easy, everyone would have the body of their dreams. They'd be supporting leanness. But the thing that makes it easier for me is that I understand these things on a behavioral level. I understand when I'm eating certain foods, I'm more predisposed to eating more of those foods. Is even including a cheat day going to be conducive if it just makes you think about food even more? These are things you really got to think about. And yeah, if you want help on this, again, check out my community. I have literally 2 courses on it right now that I'm very proud of, especially my second one that can get you to a bodybuilding show. I really like this question. What is your most memorable PR? Probably hitting 405 for the first time in the gym, but then hitting it in competition at the Bench Press World Championships in Japan in 2019. That was probably one of the biggest like highs I've experienced. 2 of the biggest highs I've experienced like out of lifting were my 2 Bench Press World Championship competitions. Even though I didn't win, I came in 7th and then 6th, but I hit a PR on the world stage, which is huge. And especially hitting that like 407 in Japan. Like, Japan was dope. Such a cool experience. Yeah, definitely one of my peak experiences. Could I say the same about other lifts? Not so much, because I guess so much of my training has been focused around the bench press. I have just so much like riding on it. I would say that those are the most rewarding ones for sure. What do you think is a reasonable weight for people to chase? Gymflation ruined this. It 100% has. I don't think people should be chasing a specific number necessarily. I mean, you want to chase a trend, I think. You want to chase the trend of slow, gradual progression over time, which will eventually get you to your goal weight. I don't think you should, and obviously this is going to change depending on your height, but I think the goal should just be put on a little bit of muscle and a little bit of strength each year. Don't even worry about anything else from there, because that's going to be what takes you to those like higher muscle potentials or what have you, because you're really optimizing for like the short term. You're enjoying the training, you're getting feedback, you're constantly improving. Those things allow muscle growth to kind of automate. And that's kind of the position you want to get in, rather than bulking and cutting and hoping that, you know, the weight you gain is muscle when there's a good chance it's probably fat. Yeah, it just gets you in your head a little too much. And that's why I'm a big fan of like diet automation. I like this. Training split is said to be a personal preference. Surely there's an objective best scientifically. I'd like to say mine is unbiased. Completely unbiased. Yeah, I do agree. There must be a best one. But again, it is subjective because everyone has different goals. But I think what my split does very well is it checks off so many boxes. You get strength progression, you get a master calisthenic movements, you use the powerlifting movements to build muscle, and then you get strong powerlifting movements, and then you take care of your joints, and then each workout has something to look forward to every single day, so you can hit PRs every single day, feel good. That carries you throughout your day. I think those are all things the objective best program should really take into mind. I think a lot of programs get hyperfixated on muscle growth and sacrifice a lot of quality of life just to grow muscle. Like, you're doing some sort of dirty bulk and you're sluggish. You don't like the way you look. All for some muscle. Even if you're getting a little bit more muscle, is it worth sacrificing 6 months of feeling like that? Like, hell no. Whereas if you're lean, you're getting like all of your benefits of being lean, like visually, attractiveness, all those things, while also progressing in the gym. You're just checking off so much more boxes, and this makes your experience a lot more fulfilling in the gym, which makes you more likely to stick with it long term. So if there's a program that does all those things, I think that's the program you should probably be following. Did you ever feel like the weight isn't dropping even though you maintain your diet? Oh, of course, especially on prep, because you need to maintain just like a gradual weight loss trajectory. But the thing with that is it's not dropping because you are not facilitating a deficit. Our body has these ways of sneaking calories in beyond our awareness, an extra bite here, adding a bigger portion in, or even just like not moving quite as much at the end of the day to conserve calories. And you need to continue to drop calories if you want to continue that weight loss trajectory. So pay close attention to those things. And if you aren't losing weight, you just got to eat less, and you're just going to need to continually cut out more. And our perception is a tricky thing. We might believe we're eating 2,000 calories, but in reality, we're eating 2,700. Like, we're not tracking these things specifically. Calories aren't always like the best estimate unless you're weighing everything to the gram. And even then, there's just so many variables that can affect caloric expenditure. So if you want to facilitate more weight loss, you just gotta eat less. And again, that could be something that you need to facilitate behaviorally. Maybe you need to fast and have very constrained eating windows so that you don't eat outside of them. But if you don't really have those eating windows and you have problems with snacking, maybe you need to address that in a different way. So yeah. Have you ever thought about giving up your Natty card? Of course. I mean, the thought crosses everyone's mind, but in no way would it be worth it for me. And I'd give it up for what? More muscle, more strength, these things that fuel my ego a little bit more. More is not always better. I'm more of a fan of kind of sustained growth. I really like the natural progression. I really like slowly building over time and not being reliant on substances to fuel that. So yeah, it's a pretty easy decision for me, but I understand the temptation because everyone wants not necessarily the muscle, but like the status that comes along with being the big guy. Everyone wants to be like C-Bum, right? But we also need to understand what we're sacrificing for that, right? Are we sacrificing hormone production at the end of our lives? Are we putting up health risk? And yeah, some people are totally fine with that. They're very willing to make those sacrifices, and I respect that, especially if you're going in, you understand all of the consequences. But for me personally, to suffer health consequences when I already have a great amount of muscle, a good amount of strength, and I'm very happy with the way things are, and hey, I might be able to maintain progression even to my later years without it. Yeah, but I don't see why I would. I've lifted 315 before. How can I train for 405? So I'm sure this is referring to the bench press, but 315 to 405 means getting a lot more tactical with your programming. It means isolating your sticking point. Where are you weak on your bench press? Are you weak at lockout? If that's the case, train your triceps. Are you weak off your chest? Got to train explosiveness and train your overall pec strength with something like dips. If you're weak halfway, you might need to strengthen your shoulders with shoulder presses, overhead presses, exercises of that nature. But you're also going to need to understand periodization. And you might even want to just sign up for a competition to lock you into a position where it's like, I need to progress or I'm going to embarrass myself. That could be something that's very important as well. But as you get stronger, the recovery demands and the taxation on your joints starts to increase, and that's what usually stops people's progression in that range. And people don't focus on their joints enough. I think joints are a huge bottleneck for people getting from 315 to 405 because people start hurting, they get injured, that increases their fear of lifting heavy, and then as a result they just stop progressing. So really dial in your joint training, which is all those like rotator cuff exercises I mentioned before. Like really implementing those, finding that pain and just addressing the pain and overcoming it. There's always something you can do about your pain. Don't think you're just stuck with it for the rest of your life. Don't push through it. Don't power through it. You can address that and you're able to just push consistently over a long period of time. You're more likely to facilitate progressive overload and get to 405. So yeah, I mean, if that sums it up well. How do you keep proper mental on being natural when everyone is on something? I've struggled with this not recently, but I think more often earlier in my career. But I only really compare myself to the athletes in tested federations, really. If you're even an influencer who claims natural, but you're not competed as a tested athlete, there's a little grain of salt that comes along with that in my eyes. So yeah, it doesn't really bother me. I'm only concerned with athletes who I compete with. And even then, I'm still really only concerned about myself and my own progression. Because if I was constantly comparing myself to the best benchers in the world in my weight class, like, I'm out of luck, man. Like, I got a long ways to go. So I simply just care about my own slow, gradual progress. Am I able to hit a PR consistently? And I know that's going to lead me towards my own goals and my own personal growth. So yeah, I don't, obviously we have these internal mechanisms that constantly compare ourselves to other people. But if we can like sit back and analyze why we're comparing ourselves, I don't think we need to give it as much like weight as we do. Because ultimately the only thing that's important is, yeah, our own progression. Unless, we can use that comparison to help fuel us and motivate us, then maybe in that case I could see it being super useful. But yeah, I wouldn't hold it with too much value. So Kyler here asked a bunch of deep questions. I'm actually going to really enjoy answering these. What does happiness mean to you? Man, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. Because obviously you think of those moments when you succeed or something really nice happens throughout your day. But I think true happiness is more of a sustained feeling. I think happiness relates a little bit more to, I don't know, being fulfilled by your efforts and just having this very thorough human experience where you're progressing, you're doing lots of things, you're finding out your capabilities, you're testing the water, you're just engaging in life. I think those are things that facilitate this state of happiness. And I think we also need to be intentional and have lots of gratitude for the things we have, because it's so easy to take things for granted, and it's so easy to be overly negative and fixate on all the bad things when there's a lot of things that we can be very happy with. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like I think that's my best answer, but this is hard. This is a hard one to answer, but yeah, you have a lot of deeper questions. I'll elaborate more on similar topics when I get around to those. What's my split and frequency at the gym? So Monday, shoulders. Tuesday's my squat, quad, calf workout, although I do calves like every other day as well. Wednesday is arms. Thursday is abs. Friday is my glute, hamstring, calves, lower body, second lower body day. Saturday is my chest, my bench, dips. Sunday is my upper back day. So on paper, it looks like I'm hitting each muscle once a week, but there's a lot of synergist muscles. So I'm still hitting my arms with my back. I'm still hanging on my ab day, so I'm hitting my back on ab days. I'm still engaging my lats on my deadlift. So there's a lot of carryover. So I specifically target a muscle like once, but then muscles are probably getting hit 2-3 times a week just from all the synergy that's occurring. What do you think about the idea in life that you will find the most success if you play to your strengths? Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you have insane discipline and you're just mind over matter, you can experience a lot of success by forcing yourself through it. But I think the person who enjoys what they do, is good at what they do, is going to experience more success as a result of them just needing to put in less effort to get themselves to do it. Like, for example, me going to the gym. I'm good at it. It wasn't always the case. I wasn't always good at it. But because I'm good at it, I want to keep going. So I do think it's important that you find something to get good at. And you might not know you're good at it at the start, but if you spend enough time on it, you'll get good at it. And you'll probably start enjoying it more at year 3 or 4 than you did initially. So we need to leave room for ourselves to enjoy things. And I think this was a very big realization when I started making content, was I thought it would just be me grinding, hating life. It would affect my workouts, but I'd have to do it. But I legitimately enjoy it. I'm having fun in front of the camera now. And when I make my videos, there's just this whole creative, intellectual element that I just didn't know I'd enjoy. And if you never just spend the time trying to get good at it, you're never going to find the things you will actually enjoy about what you want to do. So yes, 100%. But we're also able to like many things, and that requires a certain amount of investment and commitment to whatever task we take on. Do you think a world can exist without complacency? No, I think it's built into us, for sure. I think it's a just natural human instinct to take our foot off the gas pedal, and there's probably an evolutionary reason for why we get complacent. Maybe being complacent keeps us away from danger and keeps us nice and safe and secure, and you don't have to go out there and get eaten by predators or whatever evolutionary reason might be responsible for that. So it's going to be there, but whether you allow it to affect you, whether you let this evolved tendency to dictate your life affect you, comes down to you and your decision to remove it. I think the people who are aware of this can remove the complacency from their life. But there's probably going to be periods where you do want to take it in, because you can't just push, 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 push. There's probably going to be a breaking point. And I mean, have I experienced? I don't know. I just feel like whenever I push, I find like just higher capacities, and then I do get my rest in, and yeah, I experienced a lot less complacency than I did before, but I feel like I got it out of my system because I experienced so much of it before, and I was just so unhappy with my results when I was complacent that I no longer want to be like that. But yeah, can a world exist without it? Up to the beholder. What drives you? Happiness, contentment, consistency, confidence, fear, anxiety? I'm sure a mixture of all these things. I think you had a later question which touches on this as well. And it's like, I've accrued enough data over my 20s to know in what state I am the most happy, in what state am I the most proud of myself. And I am not either of those things if I'm sitting on my ass and just existing. If I'm just sitting there gaming, watching TVs, not really doing, not having that kind of forward momentum that allows me to get to a point and look back and be like, damn, I'm happy, like I grinded that out. If I don't have that, yeah, I don't think I know I'm not going to be as happy. So that's what really drives me. And then there's also, when you touch on this in a further question, is that there's this curiosity. I want to see what I'm capable of. What can my body look like? What strength feats can I accomplish? What can I do with social media? What can I do with my community? Can I make this the coolest like fitness community the world has ever seen? Like there's all these things that open up this series of adventures for me. And I want to take on the adventure rather than sit down and just watch life pass me by. And with this mindset, even though it's friggin' hard, even though I am gassed most of the time, I don't know, there's just this feeling of fulfillment at the end of the day. Like I know I'm putting in those building blocks, and the thing that I'm making, I probably don't have a full appreciation for. Like in the next 5-10 years, like what's that going to look like? I don't know. That's really exciting for me. I mean, it's only been like almost 2 years of a content creation journey for me. Imagine what I can do in 8 more. So yeah, that's really exciting. And yeah, it's hard, but it's just so much more rewarding. How did you get to benching over 2 times your body weight? So I got to that pretty quick. Not quick. It was quick. I got it at 23. Yeah, it's 23. So 4.5, 4-ish years of training. And in that time, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was following more of a bro split structure, which has kind of guided why I still train with a bro split structure, because I got really strong really fast over that structure. And I think there was lots of benefit to that structure that allowed me to progress, and allowed me to build lots of muscle, put muscle on my frame, which also assisted my bench press. So I trained really hard. I followed a bro split. I prioritized strength, every single muscle. I was extremely consistent. I never fell off. And I eventually got around to competing, which kind of put me in the zone where I needed to, where it's like, all right, I'm accountable to my progression. It locked me in, and I was just fully focused on improving as much as possible. And then I learned and grew a lot during this time. Like I consistently improved my program to the point where it is today. Like I never stopped learning and growing and exposing myself to new informations and styles. And I just used all of those things to kind of instruct me. And I slowly built from there. So if I was to boil that all down into one thing, is just simply be consistent and improve. Like dive into the information, understand your body, start programming yourself, lay it out, learn how to improve. During what periods am I plateaued versus what periods my strength is soaring? And can I do more of the things during that period where my strength is soaring? And if you could spend more time in that period where your strength is soaring, yeah, you're going to progress a lot faster. Do you think maxing out your stats comes from a place of fear of regret or curiosity of the unknown? Both? Definitely both. Definitely both. Although I don't think there's too much I'll regret from this point on, just from understanding myself. Like there's so much I did I'm already very proud of. So I'm not too sure if regret drives me as much as it might have did initially, but I would say the majority is just curiosity. Like what can I do? What am I capable of? And why not? Why the hell not? Give up, you're like, why would I just give up where I could find the upper limit of what is possible for myself from every angle? It's just so much more stimulating, and like that's what our like brain and system is wired for. It's for improvement. There's a reason we get encouraged after accomplishment. And if we just attach accomplishment to every single stat in our life, whether that is making content, whether that's in the gym, whether you're training a certain muscle, maybe like socially, maybe you need to improve at communication. I don't know. There's all these things that you can improve on, and eventually you're going to become this friggin' Chad at the whatever. It could be 10 years, it could be 20 years, but you'll be looking back and be like, I'm glad I invested in those things. So yeah, it's just that unlimited potential that really appeals to me and really drives me, and that's what keeps me going throughout this grind that I have been subjecting myself to these last 2 years. Have you ever had a big injury? And if so, what was your strategy to minimize gain loss? So I wouldn't say big injury, like lots of aches, strains, knots, but they're nothing like super serious. Like I sprained my ankle one time, but I never stop working out. That's a thing. Like I keep my body moving, and I've noticed I facilitate recovery better when I'm moving, not when I'm at home resting. I think our body is meant to move, and there is a certain amount of stimulus that needs to go through the muscle in order to continue to progress it, in order to facilitate healing. So if I do hurt myself, I'm finding ways to work around it. I'm finding ways to train it, which make it feel better. Maybe I need to stretch it out a certain way. Maybe I need to exercise a different angle. There's a lot of things you could do to the injured joint to make it feel better. And the goal is to obviously don't make it worse, but do all the things that make it feel better. And that can be something that facilitates recovery a lot more. And that's what has facilitated recovery in my case, is because as soon as I experienced that strain or whatever, I just came off a little pec strain, after I was bombing myself with calories after bodybuilding prep. But that was the strategy I took, and within 6 weeks I'm back to normal. I feel there's no pain at all, no more hesitancy, because I was able to address that. So yeah, that's how I address them. How do you approach areas of life that are more difficult to quantitatively track improvement? I don't think you need to always quantitatively. I think you can use a feeling or your intuition to guide you. I think social skills are actually a good example of this. Like, are my conversations going better? Are people like giving me less expressions of like, you fumbled that joke, or this is awkward, or they want to excuse themselves? Like, if you look hard enough, there are those ways to quantify them, and I think you should probably work to. But I think just by extension of you trying and having some sort of like progressive structure in mind, that you will be improving, and you might not even have a full appreciation for it until something bigger happens down the road. So use feelings. You don't need to write it down on a spreadsheet for it to be something that's tracked, but if it's something you're focusing on and you're just going through that process of improvement in your head, you are likely improving at it, and you just don't have a full awareness of it. Where do you think you would see yourself if you never started going to the gym? So my first passion that I found was actually ultimate frisbee, and I found that in high school, and I got really good at ultimate frisbee. Ended up winning a national championship as an ultimate frisbee player. And I eventually stopped playing ultimate. I was experiencing knee issues, actually the same knee issue I experienced until recently. And my parents didn't want to support me playing ultimate anymore, because like it's not like you're getting paid for that. So that kind of like pushed me away from ultimate, and I ended up finding the gym as a result, and that became a passion. But I don't know, maybe be like an ultimate frisbee player. But I probably would find I do gravitate towards things I'm really passionate about, but like I'm just a passionate guy as well. I can be passionate about anything. I could be passionate about friggin' paint drying. I don't know. But I would probably find something I really enjoy, and I usually like getting really good at things. So maybe it would be ultimate frisbee. Maybe it would be gaming. Really liked League of Legends, Call of Duty, all these games growing up. Maybe I would be like a pro gamer or something like that. But whatever it was, I know I'd probably get really good at it. So, but other than those things, I don't know. I haven't given it much thought. But I mean, my series that what ended up leading me here was a series of decisions. Was that, yeah, I mean, I followed the path of ultimate, hit the speed bump, pivoted, found the gym, started working out, discovered bench press, followed that, discovered bodybuilding. I don't know. it's hard to say, like the butterfly effect that could occur if I just made one different decision along the way as well. So yeah, that's really cool to think about. How do you avoid passing judgment onto others while holding yourself to such a high standard? I love these questions, Kyler, because that's something I really had to work through initially. It's something I really struggled with. Why don't people just do this? Why aren't people just aware of these things? But if I was like that in interactions, I would just be insufferable. Like, I just wouldn't be pleasant to talk to. I'm having a bad time by extension because I'm passing judgment onto people. So there's this kind of like feedback mechanism that's like, I shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't be like this. At least like externally, I need to hold myself to this standard, but I shouldn't hold anyone else to this standard. But there's also the appreciation that people are at different points in their journeys. Like, I have lived a life that has allowed my development to occur in a certain way. And a lot of people, due to circumstances that befell them, might not have had those experiences which facilitated that. And they may still experience those things in the future. And I would like to facilitate those experiences for people with my content, so that we can all enter this kind of growth trajectory together. And if they aren't there right now, I think, what was the saying I was told? It was just, you just need to love your friends and family for where they are. You don't need to pressure them. You don't need to judge them. But just enjoy your interactions with them. And if they come to you for help and guidance, then they can do that when they're ready. And hopefully you can be an example of what is possible. And hopefully that can guide people, because I don't think people realize how much, like, we watch people. It's not something people, we want to force change into our friends by telling them things, but that's often not very effective, I'm sure, as we've all tried. So even if I, wanted everyone around me to change, it would just be ineffective for me to just push that onto people. Whereas if they see what I'm doing, maybe it can inspire them, and then they could slowly go about these things in their own way. So yeah, it's something I've really had to dial down, because I do hold myself to a very high standard, but I would just be the worst human being if I didn't keep that under wraps. Have you ever tried pursuing something when the cards were objectively stacked against you? Well, I think I'm doing that right now with bench press. I mean, I don't have the limb lengths to compete with a lot of the guys I compete with. I mean, I got like pretty close, but will I win a world championship in the bench press? Probably not. Maybe after 10 years. Maybe then, and like just the old people just die, or no phenom comes out. Like, I'm just at a disadvantage, but that doesn't take away from it. I still want to chase it, and I'm still just chasing that small improvement. And the odds were stacked against me when I started making content. I had no friggin' clue what I was doing. But I did have a good amount of like experience and fitness and stuff behind me that was able to help facilitate it. But I think I do it pretty often. When you start something for the first time, the odds are stacked against you. Like, you don't know what the hell you're doing. You don't know what you're going to need to overcome in order to get here. And this is just something you kind of learn along the way. So I think that's something we should be less afraid of. Like, you don't need to be inherently good at everything that you first try, but you can develop that skill set and improve. And what I found is, the more things you get good at, the more you can see the lines of code, the more that you can understand how to translate your skills from one area to another area. And then you see how those two areas blend together. So that's something that I think is really important, and I think people should always do. If the odds are stacked against you, screw it. Try it, commit to it, see what you can do. Have that curiosity. What is possible for myself? Do you provide one-on-one coaching for bench press? Well, I mean, everyone in the community is pretty much getting one-on-one coaching from me. I'm just like hyper focusing all of my time and effort into the community. And inside you have access to me for DMs. I answer all the questions. So you're getting essentially what a coach would give you and more, because you have access to all of my content, which will help guide you inside there, which makes coaching a lot easier for me, because I don't have to type out messages for everyone. You just go into the search bar at the top, you search up how to manage fatigue, you search up a specific exercise tutorial, and it's all accessible within the community. And then I just help you with the finer details. Oh, Ryan, I strained my pec. Well, like, what can I do? And then I can refer you to content in the community. I can make better recommendations for you. So yeah, school has allowed me to just really improve my ability to coach because of all the content I've been able to accumulate in there. So yeah, I would say you're pretty much getting one-on-one attention from me inside the community at a much cheaper rate too, might I add. How do you differentiate between complacency and your body or mind needing actual rest? when you get to the point you just physically can't move anymore. I experience that often. So it's like I'm trying to force myself to write out to finish this course, but my brain is just not working. And then I'll try from a lot of different angles. It's when you exhaust yourself and you try to push and you just can't. Like that's the point of like fatigue. But I've never found it to be like very rarely do I need multiple days. It's usually just at the end of the day where that's where I need to call it. Like that's my effort for the day. But I find the more I push myself, the more my work capacity improves. My work capacity is just so much better compared to like last year and the year before. And I can work later into the night. Whereas before I would struggle getting myself to work at like 5 p.m. because I make my video, I work out, I film it, I come home, I eat, have a little bit of leisure, and then I start work for the community. And at first, like I could get my 1 or 2 hours of working for the community, but now I could work all night. Well, not all night, but like I'm getting better at working later into the night. And then I will eventually hit a point that's just like, okay, like that's it for me. I can play a video game, I could put on a TV show, whatever that is. But yeah, you do got to be pretty objective with this. Like, what am I accomplishing by sitting here? Am I just distracting myself? Am I trying to feel good? Like, is this moving the needle forward? Do I have a good reason to be tired right now? If I just rested all day and I'm tired, like what do I need rest from? So there is that kind of kick in the ass you definitely need to give yourself, and that's something I have also got better at as well there, because there are those situations where you don't want to do it and you're just like force yourself, and then boom, you're going. So you need to be able to understand that you can get yourself to work even though you're tired. It's just going to take a little bit more encouragement. How do you walk the line of self-acceptance and the desire to be better? I think they go hand in hand. I have attached my acceptance to progression. Like there's already a lot of acceptance already. I've done a lot to garner the respect of myself. So from here forward, that isn't too much I need to address. From here on is really curiosity. Like what can I do, and how can I hold myself to a standard? Ensure I'm productive, I'm getting the outputs that I want, I'm pushing hard, I'm improving. And if I can continue to do those things, I'm very like I've just attached my acceptance to that. As long as I'm trying, as long as I'm pushing, as long as I'm learning, like that's very intertwined with my acceptance now. So I think that's kind of the point I got to. I mean, I will get angry at myself here and there. There's certain things I just fall short on, but there also is this like list of credibility I can also look back on, which makes me rest a lot easier on those things. And I probably have a good reason that I fell short on those things. So I don't need to be as hard on myself as I might have needed to be initially when I was just sitting on my ass and doing nothing for extended periods of time. Do you take vacations off training? Maybe you do bodyweight exercises to maintain a little bit. I would die. No, very rarely, very rarely. The only time I take off training is if I go somewhere to compete and then I just end up maybe looking around and I can't find a gym. But if I'm out there, out in Kazakhstan, I'm finding a gym, man. I'm looking for a gym and I'm looking for a way to train. Kazakhstan, or Almaty, is actually a pretty nice gym. Well, near the venue that I competed at. But yeah, it's just a part of my day. I just feel good, and like I'll go to the gym, but I'll dial the intensity. I won't always be training like balls to the wall absolutely every time, but it's just a part of my life. Like I feel better when I do it, and why would I want to feel worse by taking a day off? How can I maximize my workout if I only have 45 minutes? I think you need to go really intense, and you need to take very short rest periods. I think you should do a top set for each exercise where you just like push yourself to the max, quickly do a back down set with lighter weight, go through it, move on to the next exercise. You just got to be efficient and prioritize. If your priority is strength, like definitely leave a little bit more room for recovery for maybe those first couple exercises, but for the following ones, just boom, be efficient, just keep it moving. There's ways to make 45 minutes feel like 3 hours just by like pushing yourself really hard. And I remember that's what we had to do during lockdown, is we had to book 1 hour time slots at the gym, and it's like I had great workouts in that 1 hour because I was just like all over the place. But yeah, I had to modify my goals a little bit. I wasn't quite able to prioritize like lots of sets of like a bench press or something like that. I'd have to do just a bunch of sets, burn myself out really quick on those, and just move on to the next exercise and just keep things moving throughout the workout. Have I ever considered streetlifting, considering my totals for weighted pull-up and dip? Yes, definitely. I would like to do it eventually. I briefly asked ChatGPT for recommendations for like a competition, but it didn't seem like anything was close and in my area. But that's something I'd be willing to even travel for as well. I'm unsure about the restrictions for the federations I compete in, because there is some sort of restriction that I can't compete in other federations that don't have a strict drug testing policy. So I'll need to look into that a little bit more. But if I'm allowed, I definitely want one day want to do it. Do I think it's ever too late to become a powerlifter? No. Maybe too late to become a world champion, but so is 99.99999% of people. I don't think people should go into it with the expectation of doing it so that I can become this champion, the best in the world. I think you should go in, try really freaking hard to progress as much as possible. And enjoy that process, enjoy that journey. Don't go in with this like, I need to accomplish this to feel good about it, because the process itself is very rewarding if you just give yourself credit for every step you take along the way. This isn't something that is like an all or nothing experience where it's like, I need to win my first competition. Just go and have the experience. And every person I've made this recommendation to, and they go to their first show, even though they didn't want to do it because they didn't have the total that was necessary to win, enjoyed it. And the point of you working out is to enjoy it, not to just like push through and hate it every step of the way until you become a champion. The goal is to just see what you're capable of, utilize that curiosity, and just, that's a state you need to be in to eventually become a champion anyways. So it's never too late, never too late. Always try the thing first and give it your best effort. Best way to progressively overload abs? Best way is adding weight in some way, finding harder progressions. Calisthenics are great for that, because there's always harder positions you can hold that will, like a dragon flag, for example, that will put lots of stress on your abs and force you to lay down those adaptations. But I also like things with like weighted crunches, leg raises with a kettlebell. Any way I can find to make an exercise harder on my ab day is what I will prioritize. And that's what has allowed my abs to kind of gain the definition and get really strong, which has allowed them to support the rest of my body. And the final question is lifting your butt off the bench cheating. Yes. You see it in social media, and you see really impressive lifts and the hip fly off the air, and you're happy for them. But yeah, it's not competition standard, and you are going to be boosting your legit bench max by 20, 30 pounds, just by pushing your hips in there. But hey, I mean, if you're not competing in a federation, you can technically do it, but is it as impressive as maintaining good form, keeping your hips down? Are you going to get as much street cred as you are if you hit that weight while keeping your hips down? Like, probably not. Feel free to, and sometimes it happens. It happens to me, like accidentally. I'm on a lift that I can't quite do. My hips will kind of pop up. But you got to kind of fight that, and you got to like really train that out of yourself with the right cues and just enough practice. But yeah, don't let hips in the air really inflate your max. I don't think that's the way you want to progress anyways. You want to keep yourself planted, maintain good form throughout the lift, and progress from there, rather than, yeah, having hips fly up, just making you think you're stronger than you actually are. And that was the final question. I have been answering questions for an hour and 10, a little bit longer because I had to split this in two. So I really hope you enjoyed this format. I really hope you enjoyed my answers. And if you enjoyed it, let me know. I can definitely do more of these. And this is fun for me. I just like bang out all these questions. I don't need to like write a script or anything. I can just answer off the top of my head, which is very convenient. So hope you enjoyed it, and see you around. Was that corny? I don't know how to close YouTube videos. I'm new here.